Vacation movies, Home Alone, Pretty in Pink, and many more. Yes, John Hughes certainly seemed like the voice of a generation.
This was a different
Then
kind
Home
of
Alone 2
Pokemon
came
game.
around.
And the more we learned about it, the more likely
Day
it
Out came
seemed
around.
that
He
this
wrote it and
could
it
be
sucked.
something
Then
like the
101
series
Dalmatians,
refresh we've been
Flubber,
waiting
Just
for.
Visiting,
Of
Dennis
course,
the
it
Menace,
takes
that
a while
shitty-ass Miracle on
for a
34th
game
Street
to
remake.
heal. Early
Oh,
footage
my
of the game looked
What happened?
incredibly
He was
rough.
like
And after
the
Sword and
voice,
Shield,
and then he
I
got
wasn't
lost
willing
to
to
the
muster
slapstick
anything
and
more
spider
than
shit.
cautious
Or slap
optimism.
shit, as I like to
No,
call
I
it.
would have to play the
But
game myself before
none
I
of
could
them
decide
are
if
bad,
this was a sign
as
of
the
hope
crowning
for the
achievement
Pokemon
of horror
franchise.
that is simply
Well,
known
I
as
have now played
Home
it.
Alone 3.
Whole lot, actually. And now it's time to decide if Pokemon
This is a
Legends
film where
Arceus
even
is
if you
the
saw
real
the
deal,
previews, you
or
felt
if
dirty.
it's
How could
just
such a great writer stoop to such an insulting, demeaning, and absolutely
this.
unentertaining
Whoa,
lie?
whoosh.
Well, let's see if we can figure it out. This is Home Alone 3. So the movie starts with the typical Home Alone music, followed by the typical Home Alone credits, taking place in the typical Home Alone setting. Hong Kong! Literally, the first minute completely misses the idea of the franchise.
$10 million for the missile chip.
Sounds like your clients want to build a missile that can't be detected by radar.
Whoever possesses this chip could dominate the entire region.
What is this, Die Hard 5? What does this have to do with Home Alone?
That's what you asked for. Air Force NSB 100C series. Where's my money?
God. Thanks for creating the universe and stuff. By
Seriously,
the way,
how do we go from a kid being left at a house to weapons espionage? That's a pretty big fucking leap.
Anyway, the character is then found washed up on the beach, where they're
slip it right
appropriately
past
found by a
airport
Pokemon
security.
professor named
Great. You know, it's because of
Laventon and taken
bungholes
to
like you that we have to take our
village.
shoes off at the
If I might
checkpoint.
jump around a bit, in my Sword and Shield review, I talked about how there was a moment at the beginning of the game that
But
really
unfortunately,
set
the bag
stage
gets
for
switched
me
with some
in a really
lady, and the spies
negative
panic in
way.
order
The
to find
stadium
her.
is crowded with cheering people. One of the characters
leaving.
walks onto the field, opens his mouth,
So they get the number of the
nothing
cab through their
the lack of
glove
voice acting
cam
in this
as they pin
moment
down the
is
area where the
awkward,
woman
and the
was dropped
text
off.
box sound
And
effect
seeing
is
how it's a
way
John
louder
Hughes
than the
movie,
crowd,
my
making
guess
it
is it's in a
more
Chicago
awkward
suburb where everybody
It's
is
a
rich,
moment
quirky,
that's
and white.
supposed to be exciting
what a
and get the
shot.
player pumped to get
All
into the
done,
game.
Mrs. S.
But it
You were
falls
supposed to
flat,
deal with the
and
snow
that
promptly,
ended up
weren't
being
you?
an omen for
Guess
the
put
experience
butts
to come.
for
Legends
ashtrays.
Arceus also
I don't
has a
care
moment
for
right at the
excuses.
beginning that
We
sets
had
the
an
tone.
understanding,
Professor
and you
Laventon leads
broke
through the
it.
village
Your
to
word
take
is
him to his boss.
worthless.
Your
Sorry,
father,
that'll be no
Willis,
charge,
who
Mrs.
has
S.
free
So you can
control
tell the
of the
neighborhood I
character and the
stiffed you
camera.
on a
As
snow
you walk,
removal
the
job.
townsfolk
Jeez,
whisper
this
to
woman's
each
as
other.
compassionate
They
as
know
a punch
you
to my
came from the
ball
rift,
sack.
and they're
Consider
both
this your
surprised
payment.
and
I have no use for the silly thing.
this
Thank you.
moment was huge.
This little boy
It
is Alec,
seems like a
not
very
Kevin.
simple scene,
Alec. He
especially
doesn't
to
even know
anyone
Kevin.
not
That's
familiar
because
with
Kevin's
these
not in
games.
this movie.
But
None
when
of the
you
original
consider
characters
just
are in
how
this
firmly
movie.
in
This is
its
because
rut
nothing about
Pokemon
this
had
movie
been
has anything to do
and how
with
much
Home
trouble
Alone,
it had
despite the
breaking
fact that
away
it carries
from
the
its
name
simpler
Home
handheld
Alone.
roots,
So,
this scene
why does it carry the name Home Alone?
volumes.
Because it's a
Walking
goddamn
through a
horror
town
movie!
with camera control.
So it turns out Alex has
characters
the
reacting
chicken
to
pox,
you
which
as
means
you
he has to
pass.
stay home
An
from school.
important story
Hey
beat
look,
happening
Scarlett
through
Johansson's his
actual
sister.
gameplay instead of
I
a
already made a
soundtrack.
lost in translation joke in
Establishing
North, so
that
let's
there's
move on.
something wrong with the
As
world,
Alex
and
stays
that
at
there's
home, he starts looking
immediate
through a
friction
telescope
between
in
the
Mrs.
player
Hess's
and
house
other
with his pet
characters,
rat
rather
Doris.
than the usual empowering, optimistic adventure
Look, Doris.
beginning. It's still basic video game stuff, sure, and yeah, there's still no voice acting, which we'll touch on later. But in the context
You
of
know,
Pokemon,
I'm
it
actually trying to
communicated me
envision
that
the
this
great
wasn't
John
going to
Hughes
be
writing
just
scenes like
another
that.
Pokemon game.
And then the mouse looks
This
through the
was
telescope and
different.
sees a cat.
And
It's
different
just a cat
Legends
on the
Arceus
TV screen, but
and
nevertheless,
We'll
he
come back to
gets
the story and all
scared.
that later, because first we need to talk about the
John
new gameplay
Hughes, you've
mechanics,
done it
which
again.
form the foundation of this
Where's
new
my whiskey?
experience. Heck, I don't even think I can just call them mechanics.
So the spies rent a house on the street, as they know the old woman lives on the road, but they don't know which house.
Pokemon has
And
always
wouldn't you know
very
it, both
firmly
parents
been
have to
an
leave the
RPG
house,
series.
as the father
Very
always
little
goes on
action,
business trips, and the
everything
mother has to make a
turns. No
last-minute
quick
presentation
thinking
at her
required.
job.
There's a
I'll be
place
gone
for
an
games
hour
like
at
that,
the very
and they're
most.
certainly more broadly accessible.
I called Mrs. Hess and
but
told her you'd be
personally,
alone.
I felt
She
the
said if
formula
anything
was
comes up, she'll be
missing
right
something.
over.
Everything
Wait
just
a minute,
felt
why
like
doesn't she just have
numbers.
Mrs. Hess
There's no
watch
danger.
it? Your
This
kid
isn't a
is
real
sick
world.
and
It's all
all
just little
alone. Who
bundles
cares
of
if she's a
stats
bitch? She's
spawning
still a
in zones.
babysitter, you
Let's
whore.
go introduce the concept
despite
of
that
seeing
obvious leap in
Pokemon on the
stupidity,
overworld, and
Alex
Sword and
continues
Shield
to look through his
expanded on the
telescope.
idea. These came closer to making Pokemon feel more quote-unquote real to me, and that was what I liked about them. It was too easy to imagine a future game where you were creeping through the grass, sneaking up on Pokemon for easier catches.
So while looking through his
The
telescope, he
absolute
comes
most
across the
fun I
spy
had
sneaking
with
into
Sword
one of
and
the
Shield
houses.
was one
Like
part
a
of
reasonably smart kid. He calls 911, but the spies escape before the cops can see.
I mean, actually chasing a Pokemon? Like, and I'm in a world where Pokemon are living creatures that you physically have to find and catch.
That's the old John
It was a
Hughes.
taste
This
of
is
the
the new
Pokemon
quirky,
game
lighthearted John
I
Hughes.
wanted. And if that was a taste,
I
Legends
know.
Arceus
The dog
is
actually freezes in
there
place.
are 0 random encounters in this game, not even in the grass, and I could not
Where's
be
my
happier.
Epson?
Pokemon no longer
So first the mother and
spawn
the
and
cops think
despawn
Alex made up what he
constantly as
saw,
you
and
move
don't
around
look
like
into
in
it
Sword
any
and
further.
Shield. They
But
roam
wouldn't you
their
know it, the
areas
spies
at
break
least
into another house the
somewhat
next day.
naturally.
Well, that's
Sometimes
okay
they
though,
even
because we know that the
sleep,
parents
and they
stayed
make the
home
most
this time. Oh, you
adorable
gotta be
little
kidding me.
sound
They
when they
left
do it.
again? What kind of parents are these? Do they leave their fucking medicine in the toy chest as well?
It's too bad. I do think there's a ton of room for improvement here.
So
I'd like
once
to see a
again,
lot more
he calls the
behavior,
cops,
so
the
they're not
spies
just
get away, and
standing
nobody
around
believes
waiting
him.
for you to
I
catch
saw a
them.
burglar
But it's still
yesterday, and I
such
saw a
massive
burglar
step in the
today.
right
There was no
direction
one in that
it's
house.
hard to complain.
But there was some
It still
thing
feels
on the
so
wing.
much more like I'm looking at creatures in a
So he
natural
figures it's time to
environment.
take
And
matters into his
exploring
own
this environment
hands.
is so
Versus
comfortable.
Stefan's,
Now there
then
is
Mrs.
never a
House.
time when the
I
camera
agree,
is
Doris.
fixed.
The
None of
next
the
stop
awkward
is the
switching
Alcott's
back and
house.
forth from Sword and
What
Shield.
kind of a
This
burglar goes
alone
into a
makes me
house and
feel
doesn't
like Game
take any
Freak has
gold?
finally made that
Do what I
leap to
think.
full home
I think they're
console
looking for
games.
something
At
special.
no point does it make you
You're
go,
looking in everybody's
was
house
this
because they don't
originally going to
know
be on the
who has it.
3DS?
Yes,
And
it
if you
appears
want
we
to
need
talk
more
about
than
game
elementary
changers,
in this
you can
matter.
now
Doris,
freely
fetch
aim
me my
and throw
mine.
Pokeballs. A big part of the experience is throwing Pokeballs to catch Pokemon without even battling them first.
So Alex
This
gets
is
a video
concept
camera
that
and some
goes
duct
against
tape as
what
the parents
I've
leave them
always
for a
understood
third
about
time.
Pokemon.
Alright,
You
this is
weaken a
comical
Pokemon
now. I mean,
before
really
you catch
comical.
it. That's
Remember
how
what
it's
a big deal it
always
was in
done,
the first
right?
film when they
Let's
left him
Go brought the
behind?
concept of catching without battling to the mainline games, and I was iffy about it. It did
kind of
open up the
monster?
whole idea of catching
And now
lots
it's
of
just
each
like,
type of
have fun
Pokemon,
while
which
I'm
came with its
gone,
own
son.
perks.
Be sure
But
to
it was
stay away
still
from the
pretty
rat
weird to
poison
me.
I keep
So
under
when I
your
saw
pillow.
early footage of
So with a
Legends
camera,
Arceus,
duct
I
tape,
was
and a
once
few
again
wires,
iffy.
Alex
If
manages
you
to
don't even
get
battle a
his own
Pokemon
wireless
first,
security
where's
net.
the satisfaction
The
in catching
5-year-old
it?
now
Well,
has
I
a
can
portable
finally say
wireless
that
security
Arlo
network.
can
The
firmly
realism in
shut
this movie
his
just
blue
fucking
mouth and go
astounds me.
sit in the
So he
wrong
sneaks
chair
his camera
for being
into the
a guy
next
who
house
is
that the
wrong.
spies are looking
Throwing Pokeballs in
Yeah,
this
thank
game
God none of the
feels
houses have
amazing.
babies, toddlers,
I mean,
or stay-at-home
you're
parents.
actually
Sort of lucked out on
throwing
that
them
front.
instead of
But one of the
selecting them
spies
from a menu.
finds the
You're
car as Alex
manually
tries to think of a
walking
plan
up
to
to a
distract him.
Pokemon and throwing a Pokeball at it. There's a very
Hello,
convenient
this is
lock-on
Karen.
feature for Pokemon that are
how's it
close
going?
enough, but you can always free aim if you need to. The audio-visual
And then
feedback when you hit your target
he
is
trains the
very
ferret.
satisfying, especially if you're taking a risky
Trains
shot
the
from a great
ferret to
distance.
record a
Catching
fake
has
message
always
on
been
the
one of my
answering
favorite things to
machine.
do in Pokemon, and now I get to do it constantly. Catching without battling isn't
But that
a
plan
problem
seems
in the
to backfire
slightest,
as the
because
spies
there's
get the
still
car and examine
plenty
the
of
video
instances
recorder on
where
top.
you do battle,
video
and
camera.
because
Someone's
catching
on to
helps
us.
you in
Wait,
lots of ways,
now
which
now
we'll
just
talk
hear
more
me
about
out.
later.
What if it's
and
a
it gets
5-year-old
even better.
boy
You don't
who
just
wired
throw
a
Pokeballs
security
to catch
system
wild
in
Pokemon.
his
You
own
also
house?
throw
come on, that's something
Pokeballs
John
to
Hughes
send
would come
out
up with
your
if he was
own
on Quaalude.
Pokemon. If you want to get into a
I
battle,
really just
you
write that?
literally throw your selected fighter. This
Where's
might
the
not
Quaalude?
seem like a big deal to a
So
lot
even
of
though
people.
they get the tape,
Maybe
Alex drives
even
the car
most
away with
people.
the chip
I don't
inside.